for joining this session. Today, we're going to talk about how to create an effective resume, a resume that will stand out to recruiter, a resume that will catch the attention of recruiters. And in the next 45 minutes, we'll discuss the importance of having a resume. We all know that the resume is important, but how important is it? We'll also talk about a framework, a practical framework that you can refer to, or you just have at the back of your mind when you are crafting your resume. So the framework will have different components of that framework that you should have in your resume. And we will discuss some important do's and don'ts, some of the do's that you should have and don'ts, and the common mistakes that people make when crafting their resume. And then we'll also review a few case studies. All this we'll try as much as possible to cover in the next 40 to 45 minutes, depends on how far we can go. Another aspect that we'll cover, if we're not able to cover that bit today, then we'll schedule another session for that, will be how to optimize your resume, part 2. Another session, how to optimize your resume, how to use those tools that will help you optimize your resume for every application. Yes, every application, every single application, you should customize your resume for every application. Do not use the same resume across board. We'll talk about that later. So first of all, let's look at the importance of a strong resume. My name is Ediri Sobande, for those who are joining us for the first time. And most of us here, we are members of the Professionals in Data and AI community. It's a free community for data and AI experts, professionals. Whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or an expert, you are welcome to our community. So what is the importance of having a strong resume? Why should you have a strong resume? Why is it so important? And this is it. When you're applying for a job, we'll always bear in mind that you're not the only candidate. There are loads of other candidates, sometimes hundreds of other candidates applying for the same job. Your resume is that document that will speak for you and open the door for you to even have that first opportunity to talk about your experience or the value you are bringing on board. Your resume is that first impression that a hiring manager would see or would encounter that will lead to an open door for you to get into an opportunity or to even start that conversation at all. So your resume is very important. You are not there at that point when they are looking at your resume. Your resume should be able to speak for itself and be able to stand out. And also, one thing your resume can do for you is it will direct the flow of the conversation in an interview. So, most of the time when you attend interviews, for those who have been attending interviews, they start asking you questions from your resume. It's your resume that will guide the flow. So if you are not comfortable answering any kind of question, if you know you cannot articulate what you can do around any tool, any skill, or any question, do not include it in your resume, because your resume is what will guide the flow of the conversation most of the time in an interview. That is how important your resume is. So having said that, let's discuss the structure of a strong resume. And this will also form part of the framework. We're going to look at the framework and I'll break it down into different components. The first component is the structure. When we say structure, what do I mean? I mean how your resume is arranged. And this is where we talk about the formats of your resume. Generally, there are 3 main formats, resume formats. There's the one that is called the chronological resume. There's the functional resume, and then there's the hybrid. The hybrid is a combination of the best of both the chronological and the functional resume. We will look at a few case studies on each of these resume later, but for now, let's just discuss and talk about what is a functional resume? What is a chronological resume? It can also be called reverse chronological resume. And also, what do we mean when we say a combination resume or a hybrid resume? A functional resume, let's start with that one. A functional resume is a resume that emphasizes the skills that you have. It emphasizes your skills and your achievements, which means when your resume is structured as a functional resume or in a functional format, you have, after your information, your contact information and all that, the next thing you will have will be your skills. So you have your skills explained and your achievements, how you use those skills. And then after that, before you go into your professional experience or your previous work experience and all that. A functional resume is not usually advisable for us or for candidates to use functional resume. Why? Because most of the time, the recruiter wants to see the value you are bringing on board. And how do they want to see? They want to see it based on your previous experiences. What did you do for the company that you last worked with or worked for? What did you do in your last role? So they want to see that because that will give them an idea of what you can do for them. So if you're using a functional format, by the time they go through your skills, they say, okay, so I can see your skills. What have you done with the skills? Or who did you add value to with the skills? From studies, recruiters don't have more than a few seconds or a few minutes to look at your resume. As they are looking at your resume, before you know it, attention span is very short. They are looking at your skills is taking up time. They're looking at your achievement. Before they get to your previous work experience, they are no longer interested. They are moving on to the next candidate. So who should use a functional resume? Really, who is it meant for? Most of the time, people who are either just starting out their career, or if you've had maybe a long gap in your professional career, you've had a gap between your last job role and now that you're applying for roles. And recent graduates, you have a gap, or you are changing your career completely from what you are doing to a completely new field that is not related in any way. But even having said that, you can still use your chronological format, even if you fall into any of these three categories. So what is that chronological format in terms of resume structure? It's that format that emphasizes your previous work experience. So if you're using a chronological format, you're starting immediately after your contact details, after your professional summary. The next thing you're going to is your previous work experience. And so with that, the recruiters, they're interested. They have seen your professional summary, solid, compelling. The next thing they want to see is, what value did you add to your previous place of work? And they see that. Before they even go down to skills, they would have seen all that in your work experience, your detailed work experience, before they go to skills. At that point, they're not even interested in your skills. Oh, this is what you did in your business. They're interested. They want to talk to you. They want to schedule that call. They want to meet with you. So that's why most recruiters would advise would recommend rather that you use the chronological format. It's also called reverse chronological format because you are starting from your most recent and then you move on gradually to the last or the oldest work experience that you have. Then the hybrid format is a combination of both worlds. So you're taking the best from both worlds. The hybrid format will use, after the professional summary, you have the professional summary, you have, most of the time you have your skills, and then you go to professional experience before your education and all that. We'll look at some case studies in a few minutes, don't worry. I'm just explaining the different formats. So that is talking about the structure, picking a structure, selecting the structure that you want to. That's very important. The first step is select your structure. How do you want what format do you want your resume to take or to flow? How do you want it to flow? So when you've selected your structure, the next thing we want to look at is the impact and your experience. Impact and experience. Why is this very important? Recruiters want to know what you can do for them. really, in summary. What value are you bringing on board? What can you offer? What can you do for them? That is what they want to know. And so that's where we talk about impact and experience. So let's talk about impact and experience. So we've talked about picking a format. Now we're going to break this down into the different components of your resume. And the first bit of it is your professional summary, right? Your professional summary. I will need to share, let me see what I can share for us to see. Since the slides are not here. 1 second, please. So as I'm speaking, we can have something to look at. 1 second. Okay. Let me show an example, first of all, of the different formats I just talked about. First of all, I talked about the functional. This is the functional format resume. Here, you can see the person started with the details of his contact details, skill summary, which is also your professional summary, and then jumped quickly into accomplishments talking about skills, major skill 1, major skill 2, and then before work experience. When you have detailed all these, your skills, the recruiter, before they start looking at your previous work experience, they're no longer interested. So that's for the functional resume. Now let's look at an example of chronological resume. 1 second. This is the chronological resume. Most people may already be using this format, but some people may already be using the functional resume without even realizing that you're using the functional resume. This is the recommended format. You put your name, your full names on top, your contact details, your professional summary, very important. We'll talk about that in a bit. And then immediately after your professional summary, you go straight into your professional experience, which is your previous work experience, and you detailed all that. After your work experience, before you talk about your education, and then you talk about your skills. Okay, now let's look at the hybrid sample. The hybrid sample, like I said, is a combination of both words. So I'll use a hybrid sample for a data engineer, for example, as this sample here. So this is the hybrid. Again, in the hybrid section, the candidate talked about skills, accomplishment, and then jumped straight to experience before education and all that. Hybrid is also a little bit close to functional, but I will first talk about skills. Functional broke it down into skills first, accomplishment next, and then before the work. Hybrid is kind of combining skills and accomplishment together. So you're seeing everything together before previous work experience. Okay, so having said all that, let's talk about, I'm going to share another resume, another use case. For someone who is like a mid-level, an experienced person, the mid-level in their career, the mid-career level. I said, let's stay here and talk a bit. On the samples, okay. Yeah, we'll talk about this. I'll scroll down as we talk. So let's start with different components of this resume. The first thing we want to see, we're talking about impact and experience now. The first bit of it is your name, which should be your full names, your location. Please don't put your full address. Never put your full address on your resume. Your location in terms of either your country or your city or your state is fine. If you have postcodes, you can put your postal code there, but most of the time, just put your city and your country, and then your mobile number, and then it's very important that you include your LinkedIn profile, and then if you have a website, personal website, you can have that. Now we'll move on from there to the next important thing, which is your professional summary. Your professional summary should not be more than 40 words. It should be between 30 to 40 words, your professional summary. And most of the time, it's recommended that you use bullet points. Either you use bullet points or you use short sentences for your professional summary. Why? Because your professional summary has to be very strong and compelling. That's the first thing the recruiter wants to look at, because it gives the recruiter an idea of who you are and what you can offer. So see that your professional summary as your elevator speech. It has to be strong, it has to be compelling, and it has to be short, concise, straight to the point. If possible, use bullet points. So you can have like 3 bullet points or 4 bullet points as a professional summary. And you can see in this case, this person, James, said, I'm a commercially minded individual with extensive experience, this, that. You can put there, I've worked in this industry, this and this and this I can do. I'm an expert in this area and all that. Put it there, professional summary. After your professional summary, for the chronological format, no need to put this this person is using the hybrid. So there's no need for you to put the designs, all this your accomplishment. No. Immediately after your professional summary, go straight to your employment history or your professional experience and start there and talk about your professional, starting with your most recent work experience. And in crafting your professional past experience, some things you must bear in mind, very important. And that's where we'll move on to the next component of our framework, which is your language. The language you use is very important. So you want to use action words, action verb, action verb, examples of action verb. Let me share I'll share something else now so we can see some examples. I want to share some examples of action verbs. You use action verbs when you're starting your conversation. When you're talking about what you've done in the past, you're talking about your past experience, make sure you use action words. It's very important. I cannot overemphasize how important that is. Something like achieved so and so, built so and so, created this and that. You want to use action verb. Why? Because you want to show that these are the things that you can do. These are the things you've done in the past, and these are the things that you can do. So action verbs. The second thing you want to include in your resume are measurable results. You want to have numbers as much as possible. You want to have numbers. I was reading an article on Harvard Business Review, one of their articles, and the recruiter there was saying that at least 95% of what you put down in your professional experience, your previous work experience, should have numbers. 95%. You should be able to talk about results. Created this, and resulted in this. Cost savings. You want to talk about the costs that you saved. How much did you save in terms of cost savings? How many people did you lead in terms of the teams that you are leading? So you want to have measurable results. Recruiters want to see that as much as possible. And then another thing you want to look at when we're talking about impact and experience is use bullet points. Bullet points will make it very easy for the recruiter to follow and to see what you're doing. And so I'll share some tips now, 1 minute, on measurable results, examples of how we can use measurable results. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Can everyone see my screen?
It's very clear.
Yes. Great. So we've talked about structure, we've talked about different resume formats, we've talked about impact and experience. Now we're talking about your language. So we are building the resume gradually. Started with professional summary. Now we're going into the main meat, which is your work experience, your previous work experience. Examples of action verbs that you can use. An example: supervised up to 25 employees, reduce labor costs by more than this. I did this. So you say, oh, I led a team of 25 employees, helped in their career build. I created a Power BI dashboard which provided insights that led to increase in sales from this amount to that amount. You are putting in numbers, measurable numbers, as much as possible. But please do not try to put measurable numbers in everything. No, that is not possible. Just ensure that you have enough. between 80% to 95% of your resume, you have measurable numbers there, measurable results. It could be in form of cost savings. It could be in form of number of employees. It could be in form of number of units sold, different types of measurable results should be there. So these are examples of action verbs that you can use in your resume building. And then these are examples of some measurable result categories that you can also look at. You look at money in terms of sales, in terms of volume, in terms of cost savings. You look at people in terms of number of customers you served, in terms of the number of employees you were leading, in terms of how you grew the company or how you grew your team. Those are measurable results. Okay. There's a question in the chat. It is faint. Can everyone see what I'm sharing? Is it still faint? Someone just chatted and said it is faint.
Yes, okay. I can see it.
Okay, great. So these are measurable results. It's better now. Okay, yes. And whatever you are putting in terms of measurable result, thank you, Stella. Whatever you are putting there, make sure it is realistic. Make sure you can explain it. Make sure you can defend it. It has to be something that is realistic. Don't just throw numbers around because you want to put measurable results. It is very important. See how you can convert what you did, what you achieved into measurable results as much as you can explain it. And then don't try to force everything into measurable results. There are some things that cannot be measurable results. It's okay. You can put it as a bullet point. I did this, I achieved this, or I spoke to a client, or I helped my company retain this number of clients. I grew this. If you can put numbers, there are some that you will not be able to quantify. Some are qualitative. You cannot quantify them. It's okay to have that, but ensure that you have some measurable results in your resume, at least 5 or 8, as much as you can. There's another category. We talked about money, people, tax is another category of measurable results. Number of tasks you did, efficiency, how you improved processes, process improvements, the time you saved. Those are examples of measurable results. So we've talked about language, and that's why we're talking about the measurable results. Still on that language, we're going to talk about some negative words and phrases that you should avoid, and some cliché that you should avoid when you're writing your resume. When you say something like, oh, I'm an aggressive salesperson, it's not positive. That's not a positive word. Aggressive is not a positive word. So don't think you'll be impressing somebody when you say I'm an aggressive salesperson. Oh, I can, make customers do this and not. Avoid negative words. Aggressive, anything that is negative in terms of tone or in terms of the words, avoid it. Do not include that in your resume. Why are we saying all this? Because most of the time, your resume will first run through an ATS before it gets to a human being. And the ATS, they've been programmed with certain, they have certain measures and certain criteria that they look out for. Some aggressive words, some cliché or jargons, as much as possible, avoid that in your resume. Another thing we'll talk about is the font, your choice of font. Ensure that you use the regular fonts, Arial, Times New Roman, most of the time. Do not try to be too fancy in your resume and you use, other fonts that are not the normal corporate or everyday official fonts that people know about and people use. Just make it a traditional, regular resume. The most important thing you want your resume to be is to be punchy, to be compelling, to be strong with the way you use your verbs, the way you use your measurable values and your measurable results in your resume. Okay, so talking about the font, font size, stick to Arial, font type, stick to Arial, stick to either Arial or Times New Roman. File type, stick to Word document or PDF. I'm sure we are all aware of that. Layout, use your standard layout. Do not try to shrink the margins. Do not try to shrink the margins so that your resume can take more words. Use the regular margins that comes with your Word document. I think like 1.5 or something. Use that. Do not shrink your margins. Why? Because when the 8 years, when it's running through 8 years, it can cut off some of those things, or the 8 years might not be able to pass through it, might not be able to pass your resume. And that could lead to the resume being rejected or thrown out before it even gets to a human being. So don't shrink your margins, don't try to squeeze everything into one page and then make your resume either too busy or not readable. It's okay for your resume to go into 2 pages, but that is it. Only extend to 3 pages if you have like 10 years and above, more than 10 years of experience. That's when you start going into 3 pages. If you are just beginning your career, 1 page is okay. If you have some form of it, some level of experience, 2 pages is fine. Nobody will fault that. There's no problem with having 2 pages. Do not try to shrink everything into 1 page and then start playing around with margins and all that. No, that is about the layout. We've talked about the font. We're talking about the layout now. And then we've talked about the file type as well. One very important thing, because your resume will be running through an 8 years, do not include graphics in your resume. Do not include photographs. Do not include tables. Do not include columns. Why? This will be distorted when they run through the 8 years. As much as possible, use your text, use your words, use your spacing to space out, and use your bullet points. No tables in your resume, no graphics at all. Do not include anything in the headers or footers of your resume. So you see what we are describing so far is a traditional standard resume. Make it readable. Make it visually appealing. How do you make it visually appealing? By the way you use your bullet points. When you use your bullet points, you use your font. You can also use colors, color your font color. Maybe if you want the name of the company to be blue and you want the others to be black, that's fine, that's okay. But no graphics, no tables. Do not try to arrange your skills in a table, no. Put it, like we've said, we are still talking about your professional experience bit of your resume. We'll get to the skills later. I don't want to jump to skills right now. We're talking about professional bit. So we have said, if you're using a chronological format, your details at the top, your professional summary next, and immediately after that, you're going straight into your previous work experience, starting from your most recent work experience. And when you're doing that, mind the language. Don't use negative languages, use measurable results, and show measurable results, and use action verbs. We looked at some examples of action verbs previously. If you want me to scroll back to the action verbs, I will scroll quickly. So we just have a look at those examples again before I move on. So these are some examples of action verbs that we talked about previously. Okay, any question at this point before we move on? Any question at this point before we move on? Okay, no question. So the next thing we want to talk about is your web presence. It's very important that you include your web presence in your resume. We talked about including your LinkedIn profile or website, a link to your personal website that shows some of the things that you've done in terms of your projects that you worked on. A link to your project portfolio is very important. So the recruiter may want to click on that and see some of the work that you have done. So web presence is very important. Recruiters want to see this, want to see more of your web presence in your resume. Then let's talk about the 8 years scan. Like I said before, the 8 years will scan your resume, and if you are not following some of the set criteria, the resume will be thrown out. We will have a session, maybe the next session next week, where we'll do a practical demo on how to optimize your resume using different tools. We will just show a quick demo here on how you can build your resume from either from scratch or tweak it. We'll do a very short demo, but we'll do a more detailed demo in another session. Let me run through what we have left in terms of the resume format, resume structure, and then we'll go into the demo on how you can tweak your resume. So, having talked about the different components of the framework and the structure on how you should do your resume, let's talk about some useful tips and some do's and don'ts. One very important do is customize your resume for every job application. Somebody will say, so if I do 5 job applications every day, I should customize? Yes. Customize your resume. Do not use the same resume for each job application you are doing. Yes, you should have a base resume or a foundational resume, which has everything, or that's your base resume. But as you apply for every job, for every application, customize it. How do you customize it? You are looking for keywords. You are looking for keywords in the job description. And you're going to tweak your resume to align with those keywords. You are going to include the exact keywords, some, not all of it, in the exact keywords that you have in your job description. You're going to bring it into your resume. And funny enough, some of these things, they're already in your resume, but you are just using a different language to present it in your resume. And they are using a different language to present it in the job description. So you're going to adopt their language and tweak your resume. Customize your resume so that it aligns with the language in the job description. Why? Because it will still run through ATS, or recruiters will just search for some of those keywords. And if they find it in your resume, they pick your resume and they are interested in it. Those keywords are very important. How do we know? Somebody will ask that, so if I look at the JD, how do I know the keywords? How do I know the keywords? And how do I begin to customize my resume for every job application? Okay, so if you are doing this manually, it will be very, very tedious, and it will take a lot of time. What are those keywords? First of all, let's even define what those keywords are. The keywords in the JD are the top. When you see a JD, those responsibilities, you look at, what they say you'll be doing on the role. The top responsibilities, you find keywords there. At least the top 5 responsibilities, you find the keywords there. Another place where you find keywords, where they say the skills that they expect you to have, you find some keywords there in terms of the skills. So what you're looking for, you're looking for the responsibilities that have been detailed in the job description. What are the top 5 responsibilities that this person will be doing, or the expected candidate will be doing? Then you look at the keywords. What are those skill sets that the expected candidate should have? Those will form your keywords. That is if you want to do it manually. But if you say, I send out like 2, 3, 4, 5 applications every day. Well, 5 maybe too much, maybe 2, 3 applications every day. And how do I now begin to customize each one, manually? That would take like forever. Thank God we are in the data space, we're in the tech space. There are tools that will help. Maximize ChatGPT. It's a free tool, and it will help you optimize your resume. Another tool that you can use are resume scanners. There are a lot of them out there, but I will show us one, and I'll show us ChatGPT, and then you can Google and search for other resume scanners. So let me stop sharing, and then we'll do a quick demo on that bit. How to customize your resume for every job application, or even how to create a resume from scratch. The first thing is you write down what you have done, your previous work experience, just have a draft, and then look for a role that you aspire, a position that you're aspiring towards, that you want to take up, you plan to take up in future, or you're aspiring towards that particular role. Get the JD for that role, and then get your own base or foundational resume, and then you can use that to tweak your resume. So let's see. So I'm not just talking theory. We'll see it in practice. I'll share my screen now in a bit. So we've talked about customizing your resume, some of the do's and don'ts that we're still talking about while I'm sharing my screen. The second one is get your order right. We've talked about that. Your formats. You're using the chronological order, that is the recommended one. Get the order right. How you're going to structure your resume, it's very important. We've talked about it, professional summary, and then your job experience before any other thing. Your education should go to the bottom. Your skills should go towards the bottom after your job experience. And please, one of the don'ts, stop including the line that says references will be provided on request. It is now outdated. We don't include that anymore in your resume. Your recruiter knows that when you get the job, you will definitely be required to provide references. You just have your references somewhere handy so that when your employer asks for references or when the recruiter asks for references, you have it ready. But don't waste the space you have on your resume and to be including a line that says references. No, that is a don't. Take that out of your resume. The other don't is don't worry too much. We talked about using hybrid if you've using functional formats if you've had a gap, but don't worry too much about your gap. If there has been a career gap somewhere, you can always explain that one either in the cover letter or when you're having a conversation with your recruiter. Don't worry about trying to explain the gap in your resume. Don't worry too much about that. Most of the time, employers will not look at all that. They know that sometimes people take time off work. Sometimes as a mother, for the women, you can take time off work to, you want to focus on your family. Even as a man, you want to take time off work to do something else. That's fine. Don't worry too much about that. If it's something that relates to the kind of work you're doing, maybe you're volunteering somewhere, you can include it in your resume and put it there during that time, what you were doing. We've talked about using bullet points. Another very important don't is don't try to include all of your work experience in your resume if they are not relevant, especially for that particular role. So like we've talked about customizing your resume for each role, it also includes knowing and understanding the work experience that should be included. Be selective in what you're including in your resume. Only include what will make your resume stronger, not what will weaken your resume. So we're not all about quantity now, it's about quality. And then lastly, make your resume readable. We've talked about the fonts, we've talked about, not trying to squeeze everything into one page. So those are some of the do's and don'ts about creating your resume, just some quick tips there. So I'll share my screen right away and we will look at some tools that you can use. Okay. 1 second. Please let me know as soon as you see my screen when I share it. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure which of my screen I'm sharing right now. Okay, yeah, this one. Okay. So this is JobScan, is a tool for resume, to scan your resume, and it is very effective. It helps to optimize your resume very fast, very efficient. You will still need to do some work. It still takes time. But after the first or the second one, it becomes easier because you get used to it and you know what is expected. But let's look at something that is even free and that is readily, because for the JobScan, you need to subscribe and you need to pay some money to subscribe to be able to use this tool. So the next 2 minutes before we close the session and open it up for Q&A, let's look at how you can use ChatGPT to optimize your resume for those of us who have never used it before. So we are going to assume that we have a foundational resume, and I'm going to look for a job somewhere. Let's see, maybe Indeed or somewhere. And then we'll see how you can use your resume, how you can tweak your resume, or you can even build a resume from start. So Indeed jobs, let's see. Let me look for a data analyst role on Indeed. I'm not showing my screen yet, but just 1 second. I'll do that in a bit. Okay. 1 second. I'll see. I think I just share my entire screen. So okay. So I have Chat GPT here. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Okay, great. So this Chat GPT, the first thing you want to do is you give it a prompt and you say, you are my resume builder, or you're my resume creator. Okay. And then I say, yes, I can definitely help you with that. Choose a format. Look at, we've talked about, it's already telling you that there are 3 different formats. But you have your own resume. So you have a base resume. I'm going to pick one of the base resumes that we used before. Joe Job Scan. Let me see. I'll pick, assuming this is our resume, I'm going to pick from my everything about me on this dummy resume we're using. And I'll come here to chat. I'll come to Chat GPT. I'll drop it here. But before I click send, I'm going to look for a job, a data analyst role that I like. I'll say data analysts. And okay, data analyst anywhere. Okay, so I have the data analyst role and I say, okay, I like this one. And I want to apply. Let's see the full job description. Okay, this is the full job description. And okay, we talked about how do you find the keywords. Let's use this as an example. Have a look at the responsibilities here. You can see what they said this data analyst should be doing. Research data issues, troubleshoot, and all this. So these are some of the keywords here that you should look at is, number 1 keyword, research data issues. So they want you to have had an experience research. You should have a form of research experience. So you bear that in mind. Troubleshoot problems, identify this, that, develop, a working understanding, collaborate is another keyword here. They want you to be able to collaborate with other stakeholders. And so you should have that. You should have done that in your previous work experience. How did you collaborate with other stakeholders? So that word, collaborate with business stakeholders, must be in that resume that you're going to submit for this role. So those are some of the things that you do to find keywords. These are some of the keywords. Use SQL to make deeper dives into complex issues. SQL is a keyword. Complex issues is another keyword. Trace problems, root cause, all those things, they are keywords. So I don't want to do this manually. So what do I do if I want to make it more efficient? I go back to my ChatGPT. I send my resume and it will start working on my resume. So based on the information you provided, it will bring the resume, but that's not all. That's not just what I want. Then I'll come back here and select from responsibilities. Okay. You select from responsibilities and bring it down to all the way to skills. You don't need text. So you go to skills and you go back to ChatGPT and drop this JD there. Okay. When you drop the JD there, it's going to combine your resume with the JD that you just provided and give you a new resume. Please be careful here. Do not just copy and paste whatever ChatGPT gives to you, okay? So you send this again and it gives you a new, let's incorporate this into your resume. So it will give you a completely new resume that you can adopt. You're not just going to copy and paste. So you're going to take, say it has given you a professional summary. You're going to take this resume, right? Take it out into a Word document and you begin to tweak it and make sure that it's speaking to you. Sometimes ChatGPT may take out some very important personal, personal information. When I mean personal information, some personal projects that you worked on, some personal things that they are speaking to you, bring them back. So what you're looking for is, because ChatGPT will help you use verbs and help you include some measurable results. If you have a bit of that in your resume, it will also help you identify keywords and bring them into your resume. So you are going to now take the new resume that ChatGPT has done for you into a Word document, and then you begin to edit it and make sure it is your resume. It's not a stranger's own. It's speaking to you and speaking to what you have done. The difference between what ChatGPT will do for you and what JobScan will do, they are two different things. Because ChatGPT is free, you still need to do some manual editing and all that. But what JobScan would have done for you if you're using JobScan is you go to what we call New Scan. Okay. Here, you will upload your own resume here, and then you upload the job description here. And what JobScan will do is to scan through your resume and the job description and point out missing keywords that should be in your resume. And when it's doing that, it will point that out. Then it will also show you how your rating in terms of between your resume and the job description, how the ATS is going to rate you. So before you can apply for that job, you should have a minimum of 75%. Let me quickly do that before we close. And but we're not going to do all the tweaking. I'll just quickly run through so we have a picture of what I'm talking about. This is the final bit we'll do before we close. So I'll take this, I'll bring in one of the resumes that we looked at before, let's say this one for JobScan. Any question at this point? Please, how do you send your basic CV to ChatGPT? Okay. The first thing, like I said, I was showing us earlier, let me do that again. There are two ways you could do it. You can either copy from your CV. Your CV is a Word document. Copy your resume and drop it here and click send. That was what I did earlier. You send it. And then you go to the JD, copy the JD, put it here, send. ChatGPT will look at your resume and the JD and come up with a new resume for you, which you're going to take back into Word document and have a very good look at it. Don't just take it and use it. Please edit it and be sure that it's speaking to you. It is your resume. Just that you are using more action verbs, it's more compelling, it's more concise. There are bullet points there. The professional summary is stronger. That's what ChatGPT will do for you. Okay, so you still need to do some manual editing. Aisha said, what gadget do you use to make your videos so clear and clean? Oh, Aisha will discuss that later. Okay, so the next thing we're looking at is JobScan. Okay, JobScan. Did you give any prompt when you pasted the JD? No, I've already given the first prompt, which I said, the very first prompt, I said to ChatGPT that you are my resume creator. That's the very first prompt I did. So after that, I pasted the dummy resume we're using, and then the JD, add the JD to send that, bring in the JD, paste it, send the JD. It will come up with a new resume for you, and you can take that to Word document. Now let's look at what JobScan can do. For JobScan, the same thing. I can go to the resume that we used earlier. Let's say we're using JobScan Zone. 1 second. He's a data engineer. So I take the entire resume for JobScan, copy it, and bring it to here and paste it here. Now I'll go to the job description, the JD that we saw earlier, okay? Copy that job description and bring it here. And then I say scan. Remember, recruiters will always use a scanner. Most recruiters and most companies, they don't do it manually anymore. They'll use a scanner to scan. And this is the same thing that the scanner will do for them. So choose your resume format, because at the end of the scan, it's going to bring up, get a resume for you. So I just choose anything. I like to choose timeless professional. Okay. And say continue. And then continue. See? So you see, JobScan is telling you that your rating, as far as your resume is concerned, against this job role is just 32%. 8 years will throw your resume away. You'll throw this person's resume away, not yours. You throw this person's resume away at 32%. So what do you need to do? You have to keep improving it until you get to minimum of 75%. And how do you improve it? JobScan will give you some hints. Say, you see, these are some keywords that are missing: hard skills, soft skills, recruiter tips. We'll look at all this in our next class or next session, and then we'll see how you can use this to improve your resume before you apply for roles. The whole essence is you are customizing your resume for every application that you do, using keywords and in your resume, and using action verbs. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll stop here today.